Welcome, everybody. So it's a big subject today. It's you think it's easy, free speech. You know, the way the forefathers formed it was, we believe that whether one side doesn't like what the other side's saying, if you're peaceful, if you're not violent, you are allowed to say anything you want. David Duke, and he has, for years, has stood up. Oh, sorry, we had to switch the phone around for years with a Ku Klux Klan message, and we allow it because regardless of how reprehensible you might think those ideas are, we are a country that allows free speech and the expression of any idea whatsoever. Now, clearly, what clouds the entire issue of free speech is, who do you represent? Are you David Duke standing in the middle of a plaza in Alabama spewing your ideas? Or are you on television, like Roseanne Barr, representing a network who's paying you a lot of money? So within your show, you're allowed to, and what a shame the show is canceled because it was representing the right and points of view that aren't typically on liberal sitcom television. And I, for one, as a liberal, thought that was a terrific thing. But as an individual, your hand's in front of it.
Yeah. Sorry, we're just going to have to do it this way.
Okay, sorry. I can even hold it. Thanks. As an individual, are you allowed to express your views when you represent that company at the time, when you represent your cast members? So clearly ABC didn't think so. And clearly not only has Roseanne Barr lost her job, but all of her castmates and crewmates and production team have lost their job over her, one, slanderous and abhorrent tweet, a couple of tweets really. So, let's go to the case of Colin Kaepernick. So as a San Francisco 49er, and somebody wrote, in our discussion yesterday on my Facebook page, Colin Kaepernick was never kneeling in respect. Come on. Well, he was. He actually went to a Seattle Seahawks player who was a veteran, a soldier. And he said, what can I do? It's not that I want to be disrespectful and just sit down during the national anthem or turn my back or do something vulgar or inappropriate. I want to say, yes, I'm here to say I'm American. And I do respect our armed forces, which is why we stand for the American flag, at least at football games. But I'm not happy with the way we go about everything, and I'm particularly not happy about African Americans being abused by police unfairly. And I want to make a statement. So some people say, go ahead, use your fame, make your statement. I'm going to ask you to try to hook this up because I'm having trouble holding it. I'll just keep talking. You're going to lose my picture for just a second. So, some people would say, and I can understand this argument, you're wearing a San Francisco 49er uniform. You are then saying, well, do I represent all of the San Francisco 49ers players and organization? No, I have a very particular personal point of view. Then not on the field during the game. Why don't you go out and use your time? Go into the streets of San Francisco, hold rallies in San Francisco, gather together a forum where you can talk about police brutality against African Americans and people of color. Fair enough. But on the field, just before the game, it's not your place to make that comment. A little shady. So he goes to this Seattle Seahawks, a former veteran, and he says, be respectful, but express my opinion also. And he says, take a knee. It's not sitting on the bench. It's not turning your back. It's not walking away from the American flag. You're on your knee, which is a symbol of, I bow before you, the American flag. I do respect you, but I'm doing it differently than standing with my hand on my heart than the rest of the team and most of the fans to say, I've got a point to make. I'm an American. I'm proud to be an American, but I'm ashamed of the way we're behaving in this one particular area. So I could see if you say, no, not while he's on the field, not his position. And on the other hand, when I haven't seen it so much lately, but in many years, there have been Christian NFL players who have taken a knee to pray. Right before the game, Tim Tebow had done it and brought a few of his Christian fellow brother players together to do it. Well, they're in uniform. They're on the field where they play the game. Is that right to express that Christian point of view right there? Or should they do that in their private homes, in their churches, in their places of prayer, and not make that a symbol of that team, the Denver Broncos at the time? So, it gets tricky when you represent other people. So Samantha Bee goes on television the other night. I guess it's a CBS show. She uses an extremely vile word. I would just call it the C word. I can't even say it, frankly, to talk about Donald Trump's daughter, the first daughter. And there's an uproar to say what a conflict, what a completely sham treatment. Roseanne Barr says something horribly racist. Boom, fired the next day, the entire show gone. Samantha Bee uses this disgusting word, and so then it's painted as, well, she's a comedian. She's used that word many times in her career. You may not like it, don't listen. That's just her art. But she's talking about the first daughter. So isn't there a fine line there? Should CBS have fired Samantha Bee? So let's get into it. What are some of your comments and opinions?
Steph Page.
This is Gabby, as you know,
Hi.
speaking. Hi, Gabby.
Sorry for the vulgarity and racism. They're not the same nor the same infraction. It takes a mind that is able to critically think to discern the difference.
Steph, it's an excellent point. So you use nasty language. I don't like it. Maybe I'm too prudish for that kind of language. Well, then she's not my kind of comedian. I'm going to go blank now on the woman's name who hosted the White House dinner the other night. Remember, Michelle? That wasn't for me. I tuned out after the first 2 minutes. It got raunchy and whatnot. And again, do comedians fall in a place where they're kind of untouchable? Whatever they say, if whatever level you like. But what you're saying is that doesn't touch on a deep bigotry. It touches on foul language. The only place where it differs here a little bit is when she used the C word, Samantha Bee, she was talking about a particular individual who's in the public eye and lives virtually at the White House. So is there a fine line there? Could she just get up and tell jokes and use the C word here and there and, call people like the woman who waited on her at breakfast the C word, one thing? Then when you start calling a public figure that very name, is it another thing? Who else we got, Gabby?
We have Gunnar Schrade. He says, one person's freedom fighter is the next person's terrorist.
I think you'd have to, Gunnar, are you the Gunnar I know who was on my boat? The German
I think so.
Gunnar?
He says, hi, Diana.
Guten Tag, how are you? You disappeared. You went to the Dominican Republic or something. I miss you. I don't know if we could go so far as to say terrorist, but I guess what you're saying is we allow everything. Like I had a Russian friend in New York when I lived there for a long time, and he had been in the States for maybe 10 years. I said, why? Why did you come to the United States? He said, because I had no freedom. In the USSR, so he was back in, the Soviet Union's bloc days. He said, I couldn't decide what I want to do for a living. I couldn't keep my own money if I made it. It all goes to the state. And then, they give me an apartment to live in. But they tell me what my children are going to grow up to be. I have no freedom. I said, well, now you've been in the United States for quite a while. We're not perfect either. What's wrong with our culture? What's wrong, would you say, with our way of doing things? He said, too much freedom. Everybody can do anything. There's very little policing. People get away with, many things that are not good for the society in general. So I think maybe that's what you're saying. So much freedom. We're allowed to just stand on a soapbox and say anything we want, which I don't think is going to change. I think we want to protect that. But then what level does it go to as to who you're talking about and how, to Steph's original point, are you just using foul language? Are you just spouting off ideas that not everybody, wants to get with? Or are you being bigoted and racist? And we clearly are in an era when even from our leader, our purported leader, we're having a lot of this sentiment of anti-Mexican, anti-gay, anti-woman. And so I'm afraid we're in a pitfall toward allowing hatred to spew in a lot of different directions. Nice to hear from you, Gunnar. I hope to see you next time I'm in Key West if you're there.
He's back. He says, if you if you decide to accept free speech, you will have to accept it. You will have to accept if people saying things you don't like, and yes, it's me.
Well, yeah, Gunnar, I guess in philosophical terms, you're right. I mean, ABC has every right. They have an employee they're paying, Roseanne Barr. They have a show. They have every right to cancel. It's in all the clauses of the contract. But in terms of true ethics of a society and a culture, if we say free speech, you go ahead, be racist. David Duke is. But, the issue there is, who is the auspices? Who's in charge of David Duke to say he can't go out in the middle of Times Square and spew off his racism against blacks? There isn't any. Who's in charge of Donald Trump? We do have systems in place to make sure that he's not breaking laws, and we're looking into that, aren't we? But there's really no auspices that regulates his sense of morality and what he says about any individual or any groups of individual. And we have a long, long list of those statements now in the year and a half that he's been in office. But with Roseanne Barr, at the moment where she's working, if this were 2 years ago when she was off the air, and, she had made the exact same statement, chances are she'd have many fans who turn her off, say, I'll never listen to you again. I'm out. I'm never going on your Facebook page again. I'm untweeting you forever. But she didn't have ABC paying her and hosting her show. So there's where I think the particular issue today, does Colin Kaepernick represent himself, or did he represent the San Francisco 49ers and the NFL? Which brings me to another issue. So the NFL issues an edict for this coming year. And they say, I think the alarm in my house is about to go out. If I run to turn it off, that's why. The NFL has issued an edict that every player, well, you do have a choice. When they play the Star-Spangled Banner and raise the flag, you can go into the locker room and just remove yourself from the whole scene. Come back out when the game starts. But if you are on the field, there's no kneeling, there's no sitting. You stand and put your hand over your heart. I don't believe in forced patriotism like that. Let's say you're not making a big deal. You're like a Colin Kaepernick. You take a knee. You decide you're going to sit on the bench and let the Star-Spangled Banner go by. When I was a kid, second grade, we all the entire elementary school had to stand together every day for the raising of the flag, and we had to pledge allegiance. We had to say that poem, so to speak, of I pledge allegiance to the flag. Well, I was kind of a feisty little atheist even as a young kid, and when it came to those words, under God, I couldn't do it. I couldn't say them with sincerity. So did I need to make a big deal of it? I could have just gone silent during that part. I could have gone silent during the whole Pledge of Allegiance. But I made a deal of it. I went to the principal. I went to my second grade teacher and said, I can't say those words. They had a discussion, and they were terrific. They said, it's your right. We can't force you to be religious, to be a Christian, to say the words under God. You have your own way of doing things. So you're not making a big deal. You're causing a school-wide protest. Just if you believe in your allegiance to the flag and the country, put your hand over your heart and say those words, but just don't say under God. So, it comes down to, who do you represent? You know, are you just an individual going to that school? And nobody can make you. We have separation of church and state. We have separation of church and school, ostensibly. And here we're coming to, you know, should there be separation of religious, patriot, racist, all of those types of comments and the workplace? You know, should there be a separation? You do that on your own time, in your own place. What Roseanne did, but she is still, right now, she was, as of 48, 72 hours ago, under the roof of ABC, even if she's really under the roof of her own home. She's not a private individual at the moment. That's the rub right here.
A few comments here. Patricia George Immendorf says, if Roseanne Barr was previously or has proof that she was on Ambien for a medical condition, Ambien, which is a hypnotic and totally different from alcohol, Roseanne will have the last laugh when she wins a legal battle for being terminated to medicating her disability. Oranges and apples, totally different. You cannot compare the two.
Well, Patricia, you know, to me, the best statement, you know, came from the parent company who makes Ambien. And they said, listen, you know, in their better legalese, you know, we have been, of course, approached through the years by many people who say there were these side effects from Ambien. You know, you should publicize those more. It made me nervous. It made me this. It made me, you know, I couldn't wake up at the end of my flight. I'm kind of making it up, but whatever it is. But they said, we guarantee you, never has anyone come to us and we can prove to you that Ambien does not turn you into a racist and start making you tweet out, you know, as we said, reprehensibly racist remarks. I'm no lawyer, but I don't think there's going to be any basis for a lawsuit against the makers of Ambien to defend Roseanne Barr's racism. She's just a racist through and through. And as I said before, that's fine. We have racists in our culture, don't we? But now she was doing this under the ABC roof. Ambien, that's not going to fly, although I was one who said the Twinkie defense was not going to fly either, so who knows?
Carolyn Rice says, unfortunately, this is not the first time Roseanne has made racist comments. Her rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner should have been the end of her career. It was not just a bad decision in Ambien, it was purely in bad taste. And that has not changed. I would prefer not to hear her name again, and I hope she loves retirement.
Yeah, you know what? I'm with you on that. You know, when a person makes one mistake, Kathy Griffin's a good example. You know, she did the whole, you know, Trump head, you know, awful, bloody and whatnot. Too far. So comedians do ride that line. You know, they go toward, you know, what can be the most edgy I can get. But if they're not known for that, if they're not always hateful, racist people, we can accept an apology. We can say, you know, I was writing my bit last night and I was thinking, is this too far, isn't it? And once I did it, I wished I'd taken it back. I think we can go there. I know I can. But when you look at a person who has a history, is proven, that Star-Spangled Banner, I agree with you. Never should have heard from Roseanne Barr again. She wants to go do private stand-up in comedy clubs, if the comedy club will have her, you know, that's a different place. But to be in a big public network television show, and look at what opportunities she's lost. She wanted to express the right's views. She wanted to support Trump and sort of many of the things he represents in a written, crafted way that had some balance to it. There are characters on the show who were liberals and others. She had this golden opportunity that nobody has. She was the only one. But it wasn't just, I agree with you, it wasn't just her comments the other day. It was a history that slayed her.
Denise Oniskanich says,
hey, Denise.
Many times.
Well, excuse me. Just saw your registration for the Seattle Walk. Yahoo!
Denise says, many times the inability to communicate without cursing and vulgar insults is a result of a person's insecurities.
Yeah, well, you know, that's true too. I'll just bring up, you know, Barack Obama right here. Is that I just, you know, in my lifetime, I've never heard anybody so eloquent, as outraged as he could be by school shooting deaths, as upset as he could be by, you know, racist, beatings of young black men who didn't deserve it, beatings and killings, by the way, he never ever went over that side toward vulgarity or, just poor, undignified behavior. He was able to express, anger and outrage and even contempt and keep within a dignified forum. And we have lost that kind of leadership.
Don McCumbert.
Hey, Don. Kayak Don.
Says, thank you for speaking out, Diana. The racist undertones in this country have definitely been on the upswing during the past 1.5 years. What else has been going on the past year and a half?
Yeah, I can't get on my soapbox today. I already have been edging there a little bit to say I'm upset. I'm upset what's happening in the country. But the truth is, the way I look at it is, there is this individual, Donald J. Trump. And, as mortified, as horrified as I am to hear his constant spewing of hatred and racism and misogyny, and I could go on with all those terms, I have to take a step back and say, well, wait a second, he's not a lone outlier. Who elected him? How many people remain his base and forgive every atrocity he speaks? So, rather than focus on him, which it sounds like I'm doing, over this last year and a half, I know my eyes and many people have been, opened wide to how many people in this country have been sitting with this kind of, let's say, low-level, unexpressed hatred, racism, bigotry, etc. And now the floodgates are allowed to be opened because our leader is leading us in that direction. All I can say is I hope we're going in a whole different direction next election term.
Jean Golden says...
Hi, Jean.
Hi,
Jean is my genius poet friend, by the way. I'm going to have you read a poem on the air one day, Jean.
She says, hi, Diana. Sometimes a person or a culture has to hit bottom to begin to be able to look at themselves honestly and become open to discussions of the truth. It seems like we are in that moment now for women's issues, for race issues, for First Amendment issues. Thanks for facilitating this discussion. We need many more of these to take place all over the country where people can speak their thoughts and learn from others. Too bad not a lot of African Americans on chat line so far. It would be most helpful to hear from that perspective.
I agree. I agree on that. I agree on, just welcoming, all people of color to come in and talk about, our brothers and sisters, about how they feel about all this. But I'll tell you one thing is that I can't understand, maybe somebody out there, Eugene, somebody else can help me with this, is that, a number of Republicans have decided to leave their public office posts as soon as they can by the 2018 election, not even run again. Young people still capable, people wanting to be the public servants they've been, but they can't abide by what's going on. But the one thing I don't understand is that, Paul Ryan's leaving his post, why some prominent Republican, some respected Republican doesn't stand up and say, you don't think we were thrilled to take the White House, the Congress, the Senate? This is what we've wanted for so long, to put our ideals into place and move toward what we really believe in. Why doesn't one of them stand up and say, but not this way? I'm not a racist. I'm not a person filled with hate. I want to respectfully come across the aisle and really talk ideas and policies and make what's best for America. And I believe the Republican doctrine is the best way to lead America and for America to operate, but not this way, not with this vulgarity, not with this lack of dignity. Why doesn't one upstanding, well-known Republicans stand up and say, I've had enough. I'm either quitting or I'm going to lead the charge to stop all this behavior. Why?
Wendy Elston and her friend Shelley are listening. And Shelley says, I see this as the value of intentions. Comedians or any other human with a mouth and a soul. why not use it for the good of it all? And Wendy chimes in, some people think that we as African Americans are making up the police killings us. They look at me as if I'm a conspirator.
Well, that's just insane. That's on the level of people saying that Holocaust didn't happen. At this point, we have videotape. We have head cameras and window shield cameras of all these beatings and even killings. So, there's no conspiracy there. These atrocities are happening to people of color, and we've all got to stand up to say, police brutality in an unfair arena has just got to stop. What was the other point I was just going to answer there? What did she say in the beginning? Her
about
friend,
comedians.
Comedians
using it for
yeah, but that's kind of naive to say, oh well, come on now, all comedians should be very nice and not use any rude language and not demean anybody out there. Take Joan Rivers. May she rest in peace, is just brilliant comedian. And what made her successful, Joan, is that she was an equal opportunity. What's the word? Offender. Thank you, Gabby. Mm-hmm. Equal opportunity. So it didn't matter, age. If somebody had a stroke, if somebody were a person of color, if somebody were a shopper at Bloomingdale's, she was chopping everybody at the knees. But it was clearly all in exaggerated hyperbole and good fun. But what if we went back and took Lenny Bruce? I mean, Lenny Bruce was cutting. And he needed, to have that freedom. Now, was he hateful? No, but now we're in a different era. So I still think that artists, let's just take, art in general. If you go to see a painting and it's Robert Mapplethorpe is the best example, did these, very graphic penises and, really kind of rough stuff. If you have a little more decorum than that. But who's going to police him to say, no, you can't do that art anymore? People tried. People tried to go back to the McCarthy era. People tried to, make sure that, Jews weren't going to be able to make films, etc. So I don't think we want to go down the road to say, no, all comedians can never use foul language. They can never step over the line and intimate, their feelings about things in society. So we can't go there, but again, we go back to that issue of who do you represent? If you're on a street corner, say whatever you want. If people are really going to stand there and listen to you and join in with you, so be it. If they're going to walk away from you, better.
We'll end it on a positive note here. Stacy Pottinger says, hi, Diana. You're a hero of mine. Thank you for speaking out.
Thank you, Stacy.
What can we do on a day-to-day basis to make things better? You are always so positive.
You know what, Stacy? I think this is going to sound so broad sweeping, but I don't care whether it's the environment. We could read every day. You look at a map and say, okay, you want to see what the state of Florida is going to look like in 100 years? It's not going to be there. The entire state of Florida is going to be underwater. So we can read about the melting of the polar ice caps and our participation because we use too many fossil fuels. And we could say, but we have 7 billion people on the planet. It's gone too far. It's helpless. How can I do anything? So I think what I'll do is just lock my door. I'll make my own living, and I'll just eat my dinner quietly with my dog and make a happy little private life. But I'm not going out into the neighborhood and into the bigger community and into the United States at large and into the world at large and try to make a difference. But, sociologist Margaret Mead said that all change, all sweeping societal change happens one individual at a time, one family at a time. So if my family starts believing together in positive, in all people have equal rights, that nobody should be demeaned, that everybody deserves food and water and dignity, then that family might affect our friends and our next family. And pretty soon our neighborhood feels the same way. And we're going to defend our rights. And pretty soon the state of California is largely going to move in that direction. And then we change the world. So I suggest that you just live a good life yourself, Stacy. Just take your values and make them strong, make them real, live them out loud, and show everybody around you. Don't tell them, just show them that's how you believe. You believe in recycling. your plastic bottles. You believe in not having plastic bottles, whatever it is. We can change. We can change the whole world, one individual at a time. Thank you all so very much. It's been an invigorating conversation, and I appreciate hearing from all of you, friends and strangers alike.